me as we uncover where these interesting gourmets come from all around the world with our one and only chef Matthew on 맛대맛. 안녕하세요.
안녕하세요.
How are you?
Good. I am feeling healthy, happy, and I am not hungover. And that's not me being defensive. That is actually our topic for today.
That's right. Yeah, don't blame me. I'm not hungover at all. So we talked a little bit about hungover foods last week.
Right.
And, we talk about it quite a few times because it's part of the culture. It's, there are quite a few times that a person can be hungover after a late night of fun. And we just got to know what suits us best.
맞아요. This episode was inspired by our last week's episode about soups, specifically noodle soups and the soups you have for breakfast. And we thought, well, there's so much to talk about. Let's talk about hangover foods this week.
That's right. So a particular question is quite interesting because I feel like it's targeted at two different demographics.
That's right. So our first question of the day is, which country sells hangover ice cream?
Hangover ice cream. 어느 나라에서는 해장 아이스크림을 판매한다고 하는데요. 이 지역은 어느 나라일까요?
So if we think back to previous quiz questions, I asked you who invented the ice cream cone.
That's
and
right.
We determined that the ice cream cone, by and large, looks like it comes from the United States.
미국스.
And then there are other people who argue that the Romans invented ice cream. There are some
Right.
people who think that the Chinese invented ice cream. And then there's the question, what is ice cream?
Yeah.
I guess we'll have to answer that in another episode because today's episode is about hangovers. Although, if you happen to know who sells hangover ice cream, please let us know.
I am going to guess just Italy.
That's a good one. I feel like like a nice gelato on cheeky gelato at 11 a.m. and 10 a.m.
Yeah, and because you drink at 11 a.m. and 10 a.m. too. Famous for their wines and famous for their desserts. So I'm just, it's a pretty safe guess.
Sure.
I think
I will give you one hint. It happened in 2016. So this is not like a traditional thing. This is a recent development.
또 미국일 것 같기도 하고. Well, in any case, we were talking a little bit about soups because, hangovers, you just can't do anything without warm, hearty, or maybe not hearty. Just soup in general could be super hearty or very clean and nothing to do.
I'm with you. Warm liquid. Whether
Warm
it be a soup,
There you go.
cup of coffee,
Yes,
tea,
yeah.
a shower even. I feel like warm liquid is probably the first key to battling a
Yeah.
hangover. And if you stick around for a second half, we'll talk about how to actually cure a hangover. But a little spoiler, I think soups are about as close as you can get to an actual real hangover cure.
Hey, that's a good question. Can a broth be a beverage?
100%.
If you just serve it in a cup, does it make it a beverage?
I think that the oden 국물 that you get.
그러니까요.
I think that is it's meat tea, it's fish tea.
It's fish
is
tea.
basically what it is. And I 100% believe that you can have broth as a beverage.
That's true.
In New York in the mid 2000s, bone broth, what we call 사골육수,
맞아요.
was a huge trend, and they were
Yeah.
serving it as a beverage.
진짜요?
They were so.
It was like a diet fad.
It was a diet fad. It was keto was around at that point, but it wasn't nearly as big then as it is now. But low carb dieting was an established trend by that point. They were talking about the health benefits of it, but I think also this kind of tied into a lot of the street food craze at the time too. There are a lot of things that just really came together. It was around, but the chef who really kind of brought it into the mainstream, he was a New York fine dining chef.
Oh, okay.
He had I forget the name of the chef, but he had a restaurant called Hearth. And he was basically selling bone broth outside his restaurant to people standing in line. So he had his main fine dining establishment. But he basically took the basic bone stock that you use in French cuisine and fine dining cuisine, and then added a lot of herbs and different seasonings to it, and sold it on the street. And that's kind of the moment when it went viral.
Yeah, I mean, what a way to market your restaurant, too. Just to be if you're waiting outside, or even if you're just outside not waiting to get into the restaurant, here's some warm soup to make you feel warm and and cozy. It certainly is very comforting. But in Korea, we have a very particular cultural hangover soup.
That's right. There's a term for it, which is unusual. You don't see this in too many cultures around the world. But I'm sure if you've been in Korea for any amount of time, you are familiar with the term 해장국.
Yes.
So it refers to both a specific dish-ish and a category of dishes.
Okay.
Ish. So these are both kind of ish things. So a specific dish in the sense that when you use 해장국 as like shorthand, generally you're talking about like 뼈 해장국 or like 선지 해장국, maybe 순댓국. But like you generally not the 맑은 style.
맞아요.
But if you're referring to it as a category of dishes, then it becomes much broader.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, we discovered a 해장국 place near our office cell, and we love going there. But I do not eat the 선지.
I'm not a big fan of 선지 either.
So what is it? Blood clots?
Yeah, it's congealed blood.
Congealed.
I think most oftentimes it's translated to blood cake. Because it's, you take like a slice out of it.
That's right.
And we've determined that a cake can be like a cake of soap. You can take a slice out of something that's a cake.
That's right.
So yes, but essentially it's congealed blood. And I'm with you. I'm not the biggest fan. I don't hate it. I just think that it's a little too filling.
Yeah,
There's
right.
like the serving, like I wouldn't mind like a little bit of 선지.
Sure.
That's fine. But generally the giant block that often comes in a 선지 해장국 is too much in the sense that like I don't want to get full off of that.
Okay.
I'd rather get full off of like meat or like
Yeah.
sundae
Right.
or any other thing.
I think it's a bit too much in I don't want like the flavor and texture.
It's bouncy.
It is because like foie gras.
Mm-hmm.
Would you have like a soup with like 0.5 kilograms of foie gras?
Maybe if I was a billionaire, but
Yeah,
but you're right. You're absolutely right. I think it is very rich. It is very, very rich. And like 500 grams of anything that rich is going to be a lot, especially if you're having it first thing in the morning after a hangover.
Yeah. Maybe paste it on a cracker. I'm not sure, but
So then-
해장국 is definitely a crowd pleaser.
Right. And so you have like the style that uses 선지, which again is the congealed blood, 뼈, which is generally some kind of pork bone based meat. Sometimes it's like the spine, or
the tail,
right. Or sometimes it's the ribs. And then you also have 해장국s that will have offal, like organ meat, OFFAL, offal. Like yang and those was more popular around the Incheon area post-war, especially with the amount of foreign laborers in the area, because those cuts are generally cheaper, and now they're beloved pretty much across the country. But as a category of dishes, you have these rich, often spicy, meat-based 해장국.
Yeah, gotta have them spicy.
Well, and that spiciness is key because that's like where that 시원한 느낌 comes from,
It
right?
does. We were talking with Melody on Tuesday how you kind of beat stress or fight stress with 매운맛.
You do, and it's a thing here in Korea for those
And
listening.
she couldn't understand.
I
She's
get
French,
it.
by the way.
Yeah. I wouldn't expect them to get it, but the reason it almost feels like an accomplishment in sort of way, right?
That's a good way to put it.
Like in the same way that cleaning your room can be a stress
Satisfying.
relief, right?
Yeah.
Defeating a very spicy dish can feel both like 속 시원해,
그렇죠.
like like your soul feels cleansed, like you feel a load off your shoulders, but it also feels physically 시원해. I think there's the heat and the sweat, and then after that comes the relief.
Sure.
And I think so. Like like there's this build up, and then like after you're done eating, it's like
해냈다. 이겨냈다.
And there are also 해장국 that are clear and light and not spicy.
But those are boring.
I don't know. 콩나물국? You don't like 콩나물국?
If there's kimchi in it, 김치 콩나물국도 맛있어.
Interesting.
Like we put a little 고춧가루 in there.
What about like 청양고추?
청양고추 집어넣어야죠.
See, like I like a more of a green 매운맛.
Okay.
Like that sort of like 청양고추한 like 칼칼한 맛 with my 콩나물국. I don't want it to be red. I want it to be green. If that makes any sense at all.
I understand it.
So even then though, like the 맑은, not spicy ones can also be 시원해. And I always explain it like this. So we're talking about how can a hot broth be 시원해? How can it be refreshing? I explain it like this. It's the same sensation you get when you're hungover and you take that first sip of coffee and you go, ah. That's what Shiwana feels like. Yeah. It feels like you're kind of like being rehydrated from the inside out.
Yeah, I mean, there's something about, as we said, like hot liquid, especially if it is a little bit spicy, if we're talking about stews and soups, it really does something to you. Re-energizes you, gives you a little bit of strength after a long night and being hungover. But 바지락 is one that you have here, and I don't think I've ever had like a 바지락 해장국.
Yeah, just like again, it's oftentimes is like kind of like a 맑은 was it 해장국 like
칼국수?
바지락 칼국수. Yeah. And I didn't realize this, but the term 바지락 actually comes from an onomatopoeia.
Oh, does
it comes from the sounds of the shells kind of rattling, because when we're talking about 바지락, we're talking about clams, little neck clams, the ones that are about the size of your thumbnail.
Right.
The small ones. And so because oftentimes you get a lot of them all at once, it's the sound that it makes. It's onomatopoeia.
와, 바지락도 이제 의태에서 나온 단어라고 하는데요. 참 재밌네요. We're talking about hangover foods. We touched briefly on some 해장국, but the question is, 어느 나라에서 해장 아이스크림을 판매하나요?
That's right. Which country sells hangover ice cream?
Let us know if you have your own guesses. In the meantime, here's Tayo Cruz featuring Flo Rida, Hangover. Flo Rida, Tayo Cruz, throwing it way back to the early 2000s with Hangover. Speaking of which, do hangovers kind of change with age?
100%. They get
the types?
Worse.
Do they?
They get absolutely worse.
I don't know, because I'm not that old yet. So.
No, it just means you're not fun enough to get a proper hangover.
That's right, probably. Talking about hangovers and the foods to cure them, foods to, I guess, make it a little bit better. One country in particular, 이 나라에서는 해장 아이스크림을 판매한다고 합니다.
That's right. I asked the question earlier. Which country sells hangover ice cream?
Well, let's take a look at some different cultures all around the world, starting with Mexico.
Yeah, so in Mexico, there is a dish. You may, if you're a little bit older, you may be familiar with a band of the same name, Menudo. Ricky Martin's early band. When he was a child star, he was in a band called Menudo.
Ricky Martin was a child star?
Early teen child star?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but yeah, he was part of like an early boy band called Menudo. But refers to a dish. And this dish is basically, it's a Mexican 해장국. Like it's at the top of the list because it is probably what we in Korea would see most familiar as.
I love
like
it already.
It's delicious. It's hot, it's red, it's full of tripe. You add like lime and cilantro to it. Basically, imagine like a Korean-style 해장국 that was developed in Southeast Asia, and that you pretty much have menudo.
Yeah,
right
I guess so.
It's pork-based, and kind of. And one thing that we forgot to touch on is that in Korea, 해장국, yes, you eat it for a hangover, but you can have it any time of day.
That's
you can have
true.
it for dinner. You don't have to be hungover to enjoy it for breakfast either. It's just good for a hangover.
Right.
Same thing with menudo. You can have it any time of the day. There's another there's a South American pork-based hangover soup from Bolivia, and I wanted to bring it up because it's got a great name, Levante Muertos. It literally means to bring you back from the dead.
Oh. I mean, it makes sense, right? And I imagine it to be like super aggressive, like the taste to be like just in your face, pop of flavor. Is that true?
Not necessarily. I think Bolivian cuisine isn't quite as intense in terms of spiciness as Mexican cuisine is. I think especially the further south you go.
Okay.
But it is, I believe it has a good amount of vinegar in there. And so it is tangy and it will wake you up and it is very hearty.
Yeah, I guess the nutrients will definitely, bring you back to life as well.
That's right.
Other nations, I mean, you can go for chicken, but it's still, the spices, the tang. It goes along with the hangovers.
It's interesting that the more I looked into it, chicken isn't as popular of a hangover kind of soup ingredient as pork is. Pork is definitely number one across the world.
I wonder why that is.
It's interesting, right? Because, because pork and chicken are both fairly accessible and fairly fairly affordable, especially in like kind of like agrarian agricultural like societies,
and they're both good with soups.
Right, but maybe it's just because it's not quite as hearty. But there is one that I really do want to try from Senegal. It's called yassa.
Oh,
and it's not quite as red as Korean hajangguk or Mexican menudo is. It's more citrusy, and it's a chicken-based stew, and it's tangy. Again, this is one that you can have any time of day, but is particularly good for hangovers.
Yeah, because I think of like samgyetang as well. I mean, that's something that I would associate hangovers with, just because it's it is clear. It doesn't have to be spicy, but just feels good with a glutinous rice inside. It's got the ginseng. It feels healthier. It's herbal.
There are some people, though, especially ones who are a little bit more, who take like the idea of like hanyak a little bit more seriously, who won't have it for hangover because insam and techu, like in terms of traditional Korean medicine, are hot ingredients.
I see. Yeah.
And for some people, for a hangover, a hot ingredient isn't something that necessarily agrees with them.
Oh, really? You'd want your body to cool down, I guess. PD님 has given us a photo of yassa. So it's not, I guess there is a little bit of stew, but it's more like a rice dish as well.
Yeah, so you have it with rice, and it's much more, oh, there we go. PD님 is putting on the screen, 누룽지 통닭 같아요. It really does look like it on screen. So 누룽지 통닭, if you never had it before, it's basically, it's a butterflied roast chicken. And so when you butterfly chicken, it lays flat, and under that, on a terpan between the chicken and the cast iron, you have a layer of crispy rice.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. 피디님 정답. 해장이 아니라 한 잔 더 해야 할 것 같은 안주 느낌이 나는 것 같기도 하고.
Poetry. That's
yes,
absolutely beautiful.
Poetry. Here's another one real quick. In medieval Europe, they just drank more beer.
That's right. So in medieval Europe, there's this idea that they didn't know that water could be boiled to sanitize it, and that all cultures drank beer because it was safer than water during the time.
Sure.
This is pretty much a myth. Although
excuses,
there does seem to be certain cultures and communities that actually did just drink beer all the time.
Okay.
Not necessarily because it's better than water, but alcoholism was just a lot more severe back then.
Okay.
And until actually very recently, like pre-prohibition America, like it got really bad in terms of like how much, like we probably drink less now across the board than we have in any other point in history because life is a little less miserable and that we have a lot more escapes from daily life. However, in Guatemala, there is a soup in the loosest sense of the term. It's called picosita.
Okay.
It's literally a beer that they add savory ingredients like Worcester sauce, salt, chili, lime juice, vinegar, and that is their hangover cure of choice.
맥주국.
맥주국. There you go.
신기합니다. Well, in any case, I don't know which ones appeals to you most, but for me, I think I'll go with the 해장 아이스크림을 판매하는 나라는 과연 어디일까요?
That's right. Which country sells hangover ice cream?
Drumroll, please.
This is Korea.
대한민국!
It made international news in 2016
진짜?
when
뉴스에도 나왔어요?
Yeah, when one ice cream company, or one rather like company, made an ice cream specifically for hangovers.
Wow, 어떤 맛이었나요?
I think it was 자몽맛. If I remember correctly. Yeah, it was. Yeah. Yep, there we go. We have a picture of it right now.
아, 그렇죠. 하드바였죠.
Yes. So I might have been a little misleading by calling it an ice cream. It was more of a popsicle, but in Korea we call those ice cream.
That's true. To each his own. They're both kind of the same. But in any case, 이렇게 해서 해장 아이스크림을 판매하는 한국에 대해서 알아봤습니다. Stick around. We still have one more 맛 coming up with a fun question. In the meantime, here is Gia. 술 한잔 해요. Where did all of these interesting cuisines come from around the world? That's why we have Chef Matthew in the studio for 맛. 안녕하세요.
Hello.
we have the topic of hangovers today.
That's right.
A particular ice cream that was made popular here in Korea was the gyeonda bar.
Yeah, the take it, the
Endure it.
Endure it. There you go.
Endure it popsicle. 자몽맛, grapefruit flavor ice cream that was launched here in Korea to maybe because the 편의점s, the convenience stores are open 24/7.
There's that, and I think our country has a very strong kind of culture around sukchi and haejang like supplements. Right now
drinks.
you have K-pop idols that are the faces of a lot of these hangover.
So true.
Yeah, both like prevention and cures.
Right. Well, in any case, a big topic was, of course, food as well. Getting in a message. 1314님, 셰프 매튜님, 스튜와 스프의 차이가 뭔가요? 퇴근길에 차에서 옆 동료랑 같이 듣다가 싸움 날 뻔.
This is a controversial one. If you're just tuning in, I think the reason why this listener is asking us this is because we were talking about hangover soups the entire first half.
Right.
And some of them could be classified as stews. But what is the difference between
What's
a
the
soup and a
difference?
stew? Is it how thick it is? 그런
I
건가요?
think so.
But then what about cream soup or clam chowder?
Okay, I got an opinion.
Okay.
제 의견은 스튜는 건더기?
Is it 건더기? Is it also 건더기 or 건더기?
건더기.
건더기?
Really?
Is that? But is it?
건더기가 딱 더 크고 많고
Is
그리고 그 리퀴드 양이 더 적고.
Do you think so?
So that's my guess. There's a little liquid, more, kondagis, whether it be more vegetables or meat or whatever.
I think you're on the right track. I think to be considered a stew, I think it does need to be thicker.
Yeah.
There are a few kind of instances where I would consider something with a thin broth a stew. I think 닭볶음탕 is one. I would consider that a stew.
Okay. 탕인데도.
Yes. And you're right. I think the 건더기, which basically means the stuff inside of a super stew, so the solid bits.
Right.
We needed a word for that in English. It's
건더기.
It's awesome that we have one in Korean.
GDG로 가겠습니다. 건더기.
건더기. That does have to do with it. And I think you hit on a good point. The size, I think, also matters as well. Because
It's not like bits.
It's not bits. Sometimes you'll have bits, like a chili. I would consider chili a stew, and definitely the solid bits are smaller. But I think I think that's a very good point you make in the sense that it's rare to find a soup with large bits. I think in Korea sometimes you'll find that things like mukguk, for example, right? I feel
love
like
mukguk.
and you can have some places will serve larger pieces of mu in a mukguk. Most of the times it's smaller.
얇은 게 좋아요.
Right. I think the biggest thing is this. 그 스튜랑 수프 구분할 수 있는 차이점이 how long is it cooked for? Not the 육수 itself. 그 육수 뽑는 거 말고
그렇죠.
as a whole, all the ingredients together. How long is it cooked for?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like 찌개 versus 찜.
I think that's a different argument. And
이것도 아니에요?
we're going to have an episode about this one day. 찌개찜,
전골, 탕,
전골 and
국.
탕.
왜 이렇게 많아요?
I think some of them are they're differentiated by what they're cooked in. I think some of them are differentiated by how they're served. Are they served in the vessel that they're cooked in, or are they served in separate bowls?
Oh.
I think 전골, for example, right?
Right.
전골 is almost always served communally.
Right.
Almost always. Of course, there are exceptions all across the board. So I think stew and soup, the biggest thing you can say is that how long have all of the ingredients during the final preparation where they cook together? Because for things like, say, 곰탕, for example, right? The meat itself is cooked for a very, very long time.
그쵸.
But you don't put your vegetables in the very beginning.
Right.
But 닭볶음탕, everything goes in at the beginning. Sometimes you'll stagger it a little bit, but the potatoes and carrots, they have to be cooked for a long time. That's how it thickens it up a little bit. That's how they get nice and soft. I think that right there is the biggest differentiator between a soup and a stew.
I'm getting super hungry. I didn't have dinner. 저녁 안 먹어가지고. 너무 배가 고픈데요.
Just eat now.
We should just bring some 닭볶음탕 in the studio. In any case, here's another question here on 맛대맛.
That's right. In 2020, one major cat food company funded a large university study to find the perfect hangover cure. In which country did this happen?
2020년에는 한 고양이 사료 회사가 완벽한 숙취 치료법을 찾기 위해 의학 연구를 지원했는데요. 이는 어느 나라에서 일어났을까요?
So what's really interesting about this is that so it's like it's a very large company, this cat food company, and they funded this research, and it turns out they discovered some amino acid L something or another. It doesn't matter because apparently this company also sells supplements, and they really wanted to sell a lot of this amino acid. And so the findings were controversial, let's put it that way.
Okay.
This company might have had some interest in maybe nudging the findings to skewing them so that it just so happens that their company supplement is the perfect hangover
Isn't
cure.
that what happened with the American Heart Disease Association or things like that?
So
happens all everywhere, really.
Yeah, like you see toothpaste say 4 out of 5 dentists recommend this brand.
Who are the dentists? Give me their names. All right, let's talk about some unusual, very interesting, unique hangover foods.
I put this at the top of the list because to me it is bizarre. Do you like a Bloody Mary?
I don't understand. What is it?
Talking about soups and stews, I would argue that tomato juice is a soup.
I don't like it.
But Bloody Mary is not a cocktail. This is a cold alcoholic soup, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, yeah. So much. There is a Canadian drink. I think it's called like Little Caesars.
No, it's just called a Caesar or a Bloody Caesar.
Yeah.
Do you know what the difference between a Bloody Mary and a Caesar is?
Like celery or something?
No, it's clam. So there is so North America, there is a brand of tomato juice that has clam juice in it, and if you use that brand of clam tomato juice in a Bloody Mary, it's called a Caesar.
I see.
I don't get it either. Take that tomato juice, cook it up, add some basil, and toss it in some pasta. As far as I'm concerned.
왜 칵테일을 바에 갔는데 왜 토마토 주스랑 what is it, vodka?
Vodka. So the original, the Bloody Mary, it's pretty contentious as to who invented it. But the one thing that people seem to agree on is that the original Bloody Mary was basically half vodka, half tomato juice, nothing else. Which is just even more insane as far as it used to be called a bucket of blood.
No, I think it was pickle juice. People put pickle juice in there too.
Oh yeah, pickle. So pickle juice is like a thing. So in certain parts of the United States and in Russia as well. Pickle juice is really big in Russia too.
Oh, the cold countries.
Yeah. So the pickle juice, as far as I'm concerned, actually makes a little bit more sense if you're looking at it as a hangover cure because at least then you have the electrolytes.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't get a Bloody Mary. Like I don't think I'll ever understand it. If you like Bloody Marys, please let us know because
what's behind the
the
like
psychology.
If you
like to me, like I think tomato juice is not something that belongs in a cocktail and is not something you should be having at 11 a.m.
No, not at all. But to each his own. Sorry, I cut you off. In any case. You were talking about, I guess, the founding, the discovery, the invention?
Yeah, so I guess invention would be the right term. So the general accepted lore is that it was invented in the 20s in Paris at the New York Bar, which was the bar where Ernest Hemingway and other American migrants used to go to. There
was a bar in Paris called the New York Bar?
New York Bar,
okay.
Yeah. It's actually less... It's actually less, was it strange than you might think. You ever watched the movie Lost in Translation?
Yes.
That takes place in a bar in Tokyo called the New York Grill.
Oh, that's true. I mean, we have stuff here.
In any case, that's neither here nor there. But it's kind of similar to the Caesar salad and buffalo wings in the sense that this cocktail was said to just kind of been thrown together at the spur of the moment.
Makes sense.
Caesar salad invented in Mexico by at an Italian restaurant in Mexico.
Cesar Chavez?
Yeah, and just kind of thrown together. Buffalo wings, also the wife of a bar owner. The bar owner had some guests who were staying in later than they should have, and he asked his wife, just make us something, and she invented buffalo wings.
Oh, my genius.
Same thing, less delicious, though, with the Bloody Mary.
Bucket of blood.
Bucket of blood, or a red hammer because of the vodka in there.
Okay, yeah.
Which is, I think, it's not an enjoyable
Yeah,
dish.
that's right. Okay, sorry, I'm like getting ahead of you on the script. It's because people put they garnish it with salt, pepper, Tabasco sauce. We just heat it up. All you gotta do is heat it up.
Have you seen these ridiculous Bloody Marys on social media where they'll have like an entire roast chicken on it and they'll garnish it with 4 strips of bacon?
Yeah.
At that point, you're making a less enjoyable meal.
Yeah. Yeah, it's honestly to each his own, but for this, I get angry. Something just brings up a bad side
I'm
of
a
me.
tolerant person, except for people who drink Bloody Marys.
Yep. Here's a fun one. If you are feeling angry, you can head outside when the day is night and enjoy a picnic.
That's right, picnics. So it's not necessarily a hangover cure, but in Finland, picnics are kind of associated with hangovers because of one particular day. So there's the idea of May Day, which is something that happens in May. And so the night before May Day, the last day of April, people will be going out and partying.
Right.
And as a result, these picnics on May Day are kind of associated with kind of recovering from the night before.
I see.
And here they'll have a lot of traditional Finnish dishes like pickled and salted fish.
Oh.
Again, salt, acid, great electrolytes, something that you need to kind of recuperate and recover from a hangover.
So this is more so you're going to end up on the streets anyway. Just bring a mat. So when
there
you
you
wake
go.
up.
It's you can preempt the whole thing. You can just if you're good about planning, you can just start the night before and just stay there the whole time.
There you go. Unusual hangover foods all around the world. Stick with us, more to come. We'll leave you guys with the question once again. 2020년에는 한 고양이 사료 회사가 완벽한 숙취 치료법을 찾기 위해 의학 연구를 지원했는데요. 이는 어느 나라에서 일어났을까요?
That's right. In 2020, one major cat food company funded a large university study to find the perfect hangover cure. In which country did this happen?
Here's Diana Ross, Love Hangover. We are still talking about the absurdity of Bloody Marys. Here's the thing, though. I just don't like tomato in place of things that should be sweet. So, like, here in Korea, you'll sell, fruit salads.
Sure.
And then they'll throw, like, 방울 tomatoes in there, the cherry tomatoes. And I'm like, it's not the same. It's really not.
And it's not, and the thing is that it's not even that a Bloody Mary is sweet. It's full on savory. They add salt and Tabasco
맞아요.
and hot sauce to it. And so to me, just the idea of drinking all of that through a straw, it would make more sense to eat it with a spoon.
Yeah, it's true. 사진 한번 검색해 보세요. Bloody Mary. 특히 미국 같은 데에는 막 햄버거 토핑도 하고 lobster 토핑도 하고 별 희한한 거를 토핑을 하는데요. 기본적으로는 뭐 그냥 celery 정도 할 수 있는데 just think of like having a 깻잎 in your drink. It just doesn't make any sense.
It's interesting, right? Because context is everything. I don't mind a Spanish gazpacho.
Okay.
Which is basically, it's a cold vegetable soup. I don't mind that. Okay. But if you put it in a glass and put a straw into it,
That's
all
true.
of a sudden it becomes very offensive to me.
Right. I'm offended. In any case, unusual hangover foods around the world. Bloody Mary is one of them. Picnics in Finland.
That's right. Here's one that I want to call out because I think this is an instance of misinformation on the internet due to food. Food is such an easy thing, I think, to kind of misrepresent. I don't know this for a fact. I kind of looked into it. When I was looking up online, hangover cures around the world. It's basic or easy place to start when researching something. I came up with mincemeat and cheese, like minced beef and cheese pie with chocolate milk in New Zealand.
Oh, it's like a set meal.
As a set meal, right?
Okay.
So I thought, this is unusual. Okay. So I decided to look it up. chocolate milk New Zealand, chocolate milk hangover New Zealand, New Zealand chocolate milk hangover cure.
Right.
Nothing came up except other lists of unusual hangover foods.
Okay.
And I started looking into this more. I have a feeling that some one person, maybe a food writer or something like that, right, was asked, like, what's your favorite hangover cure? I love a mincemeat pie and chocolate milk. And then some other quote-unquote internet journalist found this and thought, oh, all New Zealanders have this. Because I could find that. I could find instances of individual New Zealanders saying that chocolate milk was one of their favorite hangover cures. But I can only find this as a thing that all New Zealanders do in other lists that looked suspiciously like other lists.
Sure.
All these people were just copying the other people's as homework.
Right, yeah.
If you're a New Zealander and I am wrong about this, please let me know. Because I actually genuinely am curious about this internet mystery. It doesn't sound bad as like something that I would often have as a hangover cure is something creamy and sweet along with something savory and salty. Not bad.
It's a good match.
But is it true?
Is it true?
Let
Kiwis,
us know.
let us know.
Let us know.
I mean, chocolate milk, I'd be down for. Better than just regular milk, because I feel like regular milk, I might just throw up. Chocolate milk, it's a little sweeter.
Yeah, you need that sweetness to balance it out. I think when you're hungover, I think I'm afraid that the milk would curdle.
Here's it's true. Yeah. Another thing that might actually make you throw up is raw fish.
Yeah, so this is not something that most people associate with hangovers. However, murhe is a hangover cure to some. And yeah, murhe sounds delicious as a hangover cure to me.
Yeah, it does. It's a bit refreshing. So I assume that this is probably in the summer months if you're hungover?
I imagine, yes. Although murhe can be had throughout the year, especially, as the closer
probably
you get
better.
to the Pohang area where, the dish is, it's kind of like seen as like the home of murhe.
Sure.
If you never had it before, it's slices of raw fish in an ice-cold, spicy, savory broth. It's very, very good. Very refreshing in the summertime.
Is it murhe in a Bloody Mary?
Right. Murhe makes more sense to me than a Bloody Mary, right? Like, I would rather pour soju into a bowl of murhe than drink a glass. My brain is weird.
Sorry.
Like,
We're stuck on
I
it
should
too
be more
much.
tolerant about this.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's considered a hangover dish because it's kind of got everything you want, right? It's got the hydration, it's got the refreshingness, it's got the protein that you need for hangovers, but it's also has its roots in a very humble kind of fisherman's dish, something that you can throw together. You don't need to cook anything. If you're on a boat and you're working long hours, it's something you can just kind of throw together and. It's seen as something that's a hangover dish in the sense that it is a very hearty working person's dish.
Yeah.
Something to kind of bring you back to life.
Right. Well, I mean, so what can actually work if we talk about bringing us back to life? Because, like we said in Korea, we have the, prevention pills and things like that. We have the after hangover little shots of, energy drinks types of things as well.
Right. So supplements, by and large, there is no real solid evidence that any supplement really works.
Okay.
However, there are certain things that you can do that supplements can help with. And probably one of the best things you can do to prevent a hangover is to eat a substantial amount before you drink. And I think it's a step that I think is not skipped very often here in Korea because, the idea of eating food while drinking is so big here. I think there are certain cultures where it's not nearly it's not considered as essential to eat something while you're drinking.
Right.
But in Korea, the two really do go hand in hand.
That is true. I mean, I think European countries, the anju is usually quite sparse.
Sparse. Sparse, and oftentimes a lot of cultures will have drinks without anything to eat.
Right.
Maybe, American bar snacks, think of peanuts and pretzels.
Right.
That's not a meal. That's not anju.
Right.
That's something to do because you're bored.
Yeah.
Just 심심해서 먹는 거죠.
Get a grill, throw some meat on, and there you go.
Yeah, and so just plenty of food before you drink, plenty of water while you drink. Lots of electrolytes. So again, salts and everything that you lose while you're dehydrated. Having a big breakfast the next morning and getting lots of sleep and painkillers. Not Not Tylenol though. You should not be mixing acetaminophen and alcohol.
Well, that's true. We shouldn't be, it's not while you drink. It's, after your hangover, if you do have a headache, then maybe get some painkillers.
Aspirin or ibuprofen. Those are the ones that are safer after you drink.
Good to know.
But you do not want to be mixing acetaminophen and alcohol. What doesn't work? Hair of the dog. You're just prolonging it, basically. 해장술. Having another drink the next day.
Talked about it last time.
And late night snacks and exercising. Also,
exercising doesn't work.
No, in fact, actually, a lot of doctors would recommend against it because you're dehydrated and potentially still a little drunk, and so you're more likely to hurt yourself than help.
This is true. Get some rest. It does seem like it's more work to take care of yourself after drinking. So. I don't know.
A little preparation, right?
Preparation.
Get lots of food in your belly, drink lots of water, and like you said, maybe pack a picnic before you go. Yeah. That way you don't have to go home and you can just stay out all night.
You never know. Finnish style. Well, in any case, back to our question once again. 2020년에는 한 고양이 사료 회사가 완벽한 숙취 차료법을 찾기 위해 이제 의학 연구를 지원했는데요. 이는 어느 나라에서 일어났을까요?
That's right. In 2020, one major cat food company funded a large university study to find the perfect hangover cure. In which country did this happen?
Drumroll, please.
Pack your blankets and baskets because we're going back to Finland.
와, 진짜요?
That's right.
Going to Finland to go for the perfect hangover cure done by a major cat food company. It's interesting. It's probably not the most balanced headline you'd want to...
Definitely not a series of words I'd ever see put together
there
before.
You go. Good way to put it. But in any case, if you are wanting to go to Finland, maybe head on over April 30th. Have a blast, pack a picnic bag, and enjoy May Day. Well, in any case, 덕분에 너무 즐거웠어. Maybe am I hung out? My goodness. Had a lot of fun and learned a lot. Thank you once again, Matthew Neem. We'll have to see you again next week.
See you then.